To set up a run on the MIC qPCR machine, we start by designing an assay. Click on New and choose Assay. Click on the Information tab to set the assay information. For this qPCR we're using TaqMan probes, so change the chemistry type to hydrolysis probes. Now add in the target information by typing in the name of the target and selecting the correct fluorescent probe. For this qPCR we're using 3 probes. 2 are specific for SARS-CoV-2 and 1 is an internal positive control. The nCoV ORF1ab target uses FAM, the nCoV N target uses VIC, and the internal control uses Cy5. Click on the Profile tab to define the amplification settings. This qPCR requires a reverse transcriptase step, so set the first hold for 55 degrees and 15 minutes. Now add a second hold at 95 degrees for 30 seconds. Change the number of qPCR cycles to 45. Now set the cycling conditions to 95 degrees for 15 seconds and 60 degrees for 60 seconds. Delete the third cycling step as this is a 2-step qPCR. Now delete the melt curve steps as this will also not be used. The data collection parameters for the qPCR are now set. For this qPCR we're also going to define a set of analysis rules to interpret the results. To do this, click on Analysis and choose Identifier. Check the Auto Generate Analysis button. Then define the rules. The first rule defines negative controls. This will create a warning if the negative controls fail. Start by giving the rule a name and then choosing a colour. Now define the conditions which must be met to produce this result. For the negative control, we are going to set the rules that if either the nCoV ORF1ab or N target has a CQ less or equal to 40 in a sample defined as a negative control, then the analysis will report warning, negative control failed. The next rule is for the positive control. This rule is set so that if any sample defined as a positive control has an nCoV CQ value greater than 40, it will report warning, positive control failed. The third rule is for samples that test positive for SARS-CoV-2. This rule states that any sample of type unknown that has a CQ value for either the 2019 nCoV ORF1ab or N target that is less than or equal to 40 is positive for SARS-CoV-2. The fourth rule defines samples which are negative for SARS-CoV-2. This rule is slightly more strict as it requires a sample to be negative for SARS-CoV-2 but positive for the internal control. The internal control tells us that the sample was collected properly and that the RNA extraction procedure was successful. In this case, we set the rule to satisfy all of the following conditions. Samples that are defined as negative are samples of type unknown that have CQ values greater than 40 for both nCoV targets, and also have CQ values less than or equal to 40 for the internal positive control. Finally, the last rule defines samples which have indeterminate results. This means that both nCoV targets and the internal positive control are negative. These samples should be repeated. Set the rule to detect samples of type unknown which have CQ values for all targets which are greater than 40. The rules are now set. To save the assay, click Save. This assay template can now be used each time you want to set up a qPCR run using this kit. To set up a new qPCR run, choose New and then Run. Click on Assay and choose the assay template you would like to use. For this qPCR, we will use COVID-19 Biobasic Assay. Choosing this assay will import all the assay run information that you defined when setting it up. As the run profile is already set, all you have to do is input your sample names. Click on Samples and type the names into the table. Make sure to type the right sample names into the right rows based on the tube number. Make sure to include the controls. For the analysis to work, we'll need to define our samples as either unknowns, samples which are testing, or controls. Change the sample type or the controls to define them as either negative controls or positive controls. The samples can be left as type unknown. The run is now ready to go. Make sure your samples are in the qPCR machine and the tube clip is on properly. Click on the MIC machine that is connected to the computer and choose Start Run.